Welcome back to Sunday Morning Cafe, our ongoing conversation about building and maintaining resilience through difficult times. Today I'd like to offer a reflection on Father's Day and some of the elements that can help grow resilience in our kids, whether they're 4 years old or 94 years old. To get us started, I'd like to take you back to a story that took place 24 plus years ago. Around that time, my wife was in her third trimester with my firstborn daughter, Annalise. And I thought, what can I do to prepare the way for this birth? And so I did what people of a certain age would do. I thought, I'm going to put together a mixed tape, and I'm going to call it Songs to Have a Baby By. And I put maybe like 15, 20 songs on a cassette tape that I thought would be kind of calming for my wife while she's pushing a baby out into the world. So I put my tape together, and on the day when her water breaks, I grabbed the suitcase after running outside in my underwear and realizing I wasn't dressed. And I went back in, got dressed, grabbed my boom box, her suitcase, got in the car, we got to the hospital. And when that time came when hard labor started, I was going to shine. I reached over, I pressed the play button and waited for the kudos from my wife. And what she says to me is, "Tom, could you turn that off? That's annoying me." And thank God I was smart enough to realize that you're not allowed to get your feelings hurt when your wife's pushing a baby out through her birth canal. So I turned it off and the birth went on. Now's the time for me to tell you the story before the story. Because more than 30 years before that, I was one of 7 kids. And before the youngest one came along for my mom, there were the 3 of us who were kind of clumped together. And Mom would bathe us car wash style, because when you have that many kids, you got to get a lot done in a hurry. So she'd fill up the tub, she'd throw us in, she'd soap us up, rinse us off, and after the rinse cycle, she'd get us out for the drying cycle. And I'd come out first. And Mom's toweling me off, and what am I, 3 years old or something like that? And I can recall standing in front of her and kind of looking. And at one point I say to her, "I see Tom in Mom's eyes." And without missing a beat, my mom says, "Well, that's 'cause Tom's in Mom's heart." And the next bath, I thought to do the same thing, and she gave the same reply, and that became like a little ritual she and I did back and forth, which had to come to an end when she quit giving me baths when I went away to college. but it was a ritual we shared back and forth. And my mom hadn't even read Heinz Kohut, the father of self-psychology, which is the study of how it is that people give psychological birth to a child and how that child develops a self over time. What Heinz Kohut said, the central metaphor for his theory, was that what parents provide for a child when they empathetically pay attention to the child's needs and meet those needs as best they can, a parent provides a mirror in front of a child where they can see themselves accurately and come to know themselves as a self in relationship to a parent. So that in the relationship to a good empathetic parent, the child comes to understand that they have these emotions that are reliable. They have these needs that can be met. So that mirroring function is the central thing that a good parent provides a child. Now back to my story. Because this very first birth, Lisa had a heck of a time. It took a full 6 hours of some pretty hard labor before Annalise would come out into the world. And so when she finally makes her way into the world, Lisa takes her to herself, and there's the tears and there's the nursing, and then Lisa's just really tired. And as she starts falling asleep, I see that the nurse is busting a move toward my baby, who wants to grab my baby and give her a bath, and that's when I bust my move, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna take that baby over to the warming lights. And on the way over there, I'm thinking to myself, what does Annalise want? What does my firstborn here really want? And I thought to myself, she'd like to have her womb back. So under that warming light, I take my arms and I make a snug little womb around her. And as I'm looking at her, it occurs to me, aha. And I say, hold on just a second, Annalise. And I reach over to my boom box and I press play. And the very first song that I queued up comes on like this. Still, 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 let all the world keep still. And it seemed to me that's how it was. The whole world stopped. And I've got this little womb around my daughter, and that's when it happened. Her little eyes looked up into my eyes, and my eyes were right there. And I knew just what she was thinking, even though she didn't know how to speak English just yet. I heard her say to me, I see Annalise in Dad's eyes. And so I say out loud to her, that's because Annalise is in Daddy's heart. Right there in that moment were the two elemental structures that lead to good fathering and good parenting. One of those elemental structures is good structure. That's one ingredient needed for great parenting, good, firm structure. And for an infant in that moment, it meant making my arms into a womb. As Annalise and then later John Harry and then Lizzie got older, I understood that structure would mean for a school-age child and adolescent is the kind of structure that we provide that you find in any kind of parental book that you read about good parenting, which is if you choose this good consequence or this good behavior, this good consequence is going to come your way, and to make sure that consequence happens. You choose this behavior that's not so good, you're going to get this consequence, you're choosing that consequence. Good, firm structure is one element, but not the most important element. Because the second most important element, my mom intuitively knew it back during the bath time. And in that moment, I knew it. The second element I'm going to say that's the most important element is delivering delight to your child. That when your child comes before you, they experience themselves as framed in a mirror of delight, savoring your child, delighting your child. Delight is the psychological and spiritual oxygen and calcium that the little soul of a child needs to develop into a resilient and thriving person. And that's true for 4-year-olds. It's also true for 94-year-olds. Delight is that ingredient that if you get that right as a parent, you can get a lot wrong. But if you get that delight correct, you've delivered what that little soul needs to develop into a resilient human being. Now, I'd like to tell you that in the course of my parenting, now I've got a 24-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 16-year-old. I'd like to say I kept that insight in my forefront all along, but I didn't. In fact, let me tell you this story. Because some years later, when all my kids still lived at home, I can remember this thing happening time and again. I'd come home from work, I'd walk through the door, and my face would look shriveled and kind of mad. And I would say, I left this house clean. This kitchen was clean, this living room was clean, and now it's a pigsty. Could you guys have picked it up? And I would look at them as if they were like, I guess, catfish bait or Limburger cheese, like a look of disgust on my face. That happened a bunch of times, and then I remembered where I saw a look like that before. Because through the course of my adolescence, for some reason, my dad would have a look like that on his face when he would see me. In fact, my dad got a notion when I was in high school and middle school that what he needed to do to make his son more resilient was to treat me kind of tough with kind of probably abusive words that he would apply to me and question my manhood and stuff like that, with the idea that that would make me stronger. So if bullying happened, I'd be prepared for it. When the bullying came, I just figured these bullies kind of were in on what my dad already figured out about me. Rather than make me resilient, it eroded resilience. So I remembered that look that my dad had on his face, and I adjusted. And what I decided was, on my way home, and I hit a certain landmark, I would start to prepare my face and my insides. So when I walked through that door, at least for 30 seconds, my kids would hear things like this. This is the best part of my day. I'm so glad to see you. And I would put my arms around him maybe, or my face would show that you're a delight to me. When they got a little bit older, I might have to force their arms around me and say, now you're going to hug your old man, that kind of thing. And so what I'd like to offer you is, and it might be that just 5 minutes later I'd say, and by the way, the kitchen's terrible. How do you get to work on that? But the first thing they were going to see on my face was a 30-second burst of delight. And I'd like to offer that to you as a Father's Day present. Something that could up your parenting game just by the investment of 30 seconds. At the end of your workday, whether you're working from home or you're gone, to take that 30 seconds and make your face express the delight that's in your heart for that child. Make your words express that. Make yourself a purveyor of delight for your child. If you have 30 more seconds to spare and you want to invest a full minute in this, then the 30 seconds when they're going to bed, have words available like these words. You know, I hope someday you get to have a child like you, because then you'll know the delight inside of me. And deliver 30 more seconds of delight right before they go to bed. And if you have 30 more seconds to dedicate to this project, that would be 90 seconds in a day. Then when they wake up in the morning, do something similar. Make those words when they wake up like this. Man, you make my day when you wake up and get out of bed and I get to see you. Again, make them the object of delight. Let the frame around the mirror that you are for them deliver delight, that their whole self, even the way they screw up, has a certain dimension of delight to it. If you get the delight right, you can get a lot wrong and it'll be okay. Back in that hospital room, which I ended up repeating for all 3 kids, there was this firm structure I tried to put around them, and this experience of conveying delight that I hopefully have tried to do in the course of their lives. But there comes a point when you realize as a parent that your arms are never going to be long enough for the course of a whole lifetime, and that gaze of yours won't always be there for them. So can we make a pact with each other that we could try to create structures in our society that make room for all of God's children to be the object of delight? Would you do that for my kids? And I'll pledge to you, I'll do all I can to do that for your kids, so that your kids and my kids can have that firm structure that makes room for them to be the object of delight no matter where they go. And I want to end by saying Happy Father's Day to those of you who are fathers and those of you who do fathering just by the way you conduct yourselves in your lives or do caregiving in that way. And I'll see you next time as we get back together to discuss what really makes resilience.